My New Year's Eve prank went way too far, and it ended my relationship for good. Hi, this is my first time posting here, and I'm using a throwaway account because I don't want us tied to my main. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm here. Maybe for advice, clarity, or just to get this off my chest. Either way, here I am, spilling my guts to strangers on the internet. Let me introduce myself. My name is Amelia, and for the sake of anonymity, let's call my ex-boyfriend Tom. Tom and I were together for about 5 years, and it was amazing until it wasn't. Here's the thing, I've always been a huge prankster. It's just part of who I am, or at least it used to be. There's something so satisfying about pulling off a well-thought-out prank. Naturally, Tom became my favorite target. When we first started dating, my pranks were harmless, cute even. I'd hide sticky notes with silly messages around his apartment or switch his coffee to decaf just to see if he'd notice. He'd roll his eyes and give me this smirk I absolutely adored. But here's where I messed up. Tom isn't a big fan of pranks. It's not like he outright hated them, at least not in the beginning. He's a guy who values order and predictability, while I thrive on chaos. Back then, he didn't complain, probably because he loved me. I mistook his tolerance for enjoyment. Looking back, I think he was just putting up with it because he cared about me, not because he liked being the butt of my jokes.
But I didn't see it that way at the time.
To me, it was all harmless fun. Things took a turn when a friend of mine suggested I start vlogging or create a couple's account. She thought my pranks would blow up on social media. I laughed it off at first. I wasn't the type to put myself out there, let alone share my life online. But then life threw me a curveball. I got laid off. It wasn't personal. My company was making cutbacks, and I was part of the wave of layoffs. Still, it hit hard. With too much free time and mounting anxiety, I found myself spending hours scrolling through social media. That's when I stumbled into the world of prank videos and couples content. These couples were doing exactly what I'd been doing with Tom, except they were filming it, editing it, and sharing it with millions of people. And they were making money. Sponsorships, ads, even merchandise. It was like they'd turned their pranks into careers. At first, it seemed ridiculous. I wasn't a content creator and had zero experience with editing or building an audience. But as time went on, I started to think, why not give it a try? The more I thought about it, the more tempting the idea became. I was unemployed at the time, struggling to find a new job, and the thought of going viral and potentially never working a regular job again was intoxicating. It felt like an escape, like a dream I couldn't ignore. I started imagining the possibilities. What if this could work? What if our page blew up? I wouldn't have to spend hours tweaking my resume or sitting through awkward interviews. I could be my own boss, doing something I genuinely enjoyed. It seemed like a win-win. Honestly, at the time, it felt like a brilliant idea. What could go wrong? I had a knack for pranks, social media was thriving, and people were making a living off content like this. It felt like the universe was nudging me to try something new. One evening, while Tom and I were sitting on the couch after dinner, I decided to bring it up. I framed it as a fun idea, trying not to overwhelm him or make it seem like I was pressuring him. His response wasn't enthusiastic. He gave me a look that said he wasn't into it but didn't want to argue. He shrugged and said, "Do whatever you want. Just leave me out of it." I won't lie, I felt a bit deflated. I'd hoped he'd be more excited, maybe even want to team up. But then I realized he hadn't said no. That was enough for me to move forward. I threw myself into research, watching countless tutorials on filming, editing, and building an audience. I hunted for affordable equipment, a ring light, a decent camera, a tripod, and treated myself to beginner-friendly video editing software. It was a lot of work, but I was determined to get it right. I started small with harmless pranks, nothing too outrageous. My first video was a classic, placing a fake spider on the toilet seat. Tom's reaction was perfect. He jumped, shouted, "What the hell?" then laughed when he realized it wasn't real. I edited the video, added music, and uploaded it to my new account. To my surprise, it got a decent number of views and a few comments. That little bit of encouragement was all I needed. The next prank was switching sugar for salt in his coffee. Again, harmless and funny. Tom's reaction was the usual mix of annoyed and amused, and I made sure to end the video before he could say anything too grumpy. It was thrilling. I was creating content, getting attention, and having fun. For the first time, I thought, maybe this could actually work. I kept going. At first, the response was modest, some likes, a few comments. But soon I started craving more. Decent views weren't enough. I wanted to go viral. I wanted the millions of views, the flood of comments, the subscribers pouring in. I wanted to turn this into a career, one where I wouldn't have to worry about finding a job or paying bills. That's when I realized I needed to step up my game. The harmless pranks were fun, but they weren't going to make waves. I started planning slightly bigger pranks to get stronger reactions from Tom. For example, I pretended he'd lost his keys. He laughed it off, though I could tell he was a little annoyed. But even that wasn't enough. The views were still decent, and decent wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wanted to blow up. So I pushed further. I staged more elaborate pranks, pretending the Wi-Fi was out all day, knowing how much he relies on it for work, or faking an accident where I spilled juice on his favorite shirt. He got annoyed, but I thought it was harmless fun. Looking back now, I should have noticed the signs. Tom's reactions were becoming less amused and more exhausted, but at the time, I either didn't notice or didn't want to. I was so consumed by chasing this idea of success that I ignored the small cracks starting to form. The thing about trying to go viral is that it's addictive. Once the idea takes hold, it's hard to let go. You get tunnel vision, obsessing over how to make it bigger, better, and reach more people. That's exactly where I was. I started pulling off more elaborate and, frankly, riskier pranks. One in particular stands out as the cringiest in hindsight. I called Tom during an important business meeting to tell him the house had burned down. To sell the lie, I even sent him a fake photo of a burnout house I found online. He panicked, canceled his meeting, and rushed home to check on me and the supposed damage. When he got home and saw everything was fine, he was furious, and rightfully so. Who does something like that? At the time, I shrugged it off, apologized, and told him it was just a joke. In my mind, it was harmless because no actual damage had been done. But the way he looked at me, shook his head, and muttered that I needed to stop should have been a wake-up call. I didn't listen. Despite my efforts, the views weren't skyrocketing. They were decent, getting a few thousand here and there, but nowhere near the viral sensation I was aiming for. I wasn't becoming an internet star or a full-time content creator. I told myself I just needed one big hit, one viral video, to make it all worth it. Then New Year's Eve rolled around. The idea came to me while scrolling TikTok. I saw a couple pull off an elaborate prank where one of them thought they'd won the lottery, only to find out it was fake. Their reactions were over the top, and the video had gone insanely viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments. It was everything I wanted. That's when inspiration struck. If they could do it, why couldn't I? But I didn't want to copy their prank. I wanted to do something bigger, something that would get people talking and sharing like crazy. It was New Year's Eve, the perfect opportunity to pull off a grand prank and start the year with a bang. I spent hours planning, trying to figure out how to make it work. I wanted it to be shocking, unforgettable, and most of all, funny. Or at least that's what I told myself. Deep down, though, I think I was craving attention. I wanted the likes, the shares, the comments. I wanted to go viral, no matter the cost. So, I came up with the idea to stage a cheating prank. Yeah, I know, dumbest idea ever. But at the time, I thought it was genius. My goal was to make it so believable, so over the top, that everyone would be talking about it. I roped in my friend, let's call him Jake, to help. Jake wasn't on board at first. He kept saying, "Are you sure about this? It seems like it could go really wrong." That should have been my red flag. Jake's usually the laid-back, go-with-the-flow type, so if he was uncomfortable, I should have stopped right there. But I didn't. I kept pushing, convincing him it was all in good fun, and would make for an amazing video. After a lot of persuasion, he reluctantly agreed. The plan was straightforward, or so I thought. My boyfriend, Tom, was coming back from a 3-day business trip that evening. I had a good idea of what time he'd get home, assuming his flight wasn't delayed. Jake came over, and we set everything up. I made sure the camera was hidden perfectly to capture the moment. Then we staged the scene. Jake and I got into bed, stripped just enough to make it look convincing, and got under the sheets. The idea was for Tom to walk in and think he'd caught us in the act. When I heard Tom's car in the driveway, my heart was racing, but not with guilt. I was thinking about how this would look on camera, how people would react when they saw the video. I didn't stop to consider what Tom's actual reaction might be. The second Tom walked through the door, Jake and I started making exaggerated, ridiculous noises. I thought it was hilarious. Tom didn't. He came upstairs, clearly hearing the sounds, and burst into the bedroom. The look on his face wasn't what I expected. It wasn't confusion or even immediate anger, it was pain. Raw, genuine, heart-wrenching pain. And in an instant, that pain turned into something else entirely.